How's it going there? Hello and welcome to everybody to the 5th annual Ukrainian play readings hosted by the NIU School of Theater and Dance BA program. Our first show this afternoon is going to be Vitaliy Chenskiy's Robinson. Scene 1. I remain.
A few days ago, I finally decided to stay in Kiev. At the time that I write this text, Russian troops have advanced from the southeast, set up a stronghold in the Borodyanka area, and are gradually encircling the capital from the west and south. After the news of the utter destruction of Kharkiv and Mariupol, this is, shall we say, rather worrying. On the other hand, no matter what Ukrainian city you go to, Russian troops may come there too. Then again, you have to go somewhere, maybe even abroad someday. My ex-girlfriend has lived in the Netherlands for 10 years now.
Over this time, I acquired a firm opinion about immigration.
And what is your opinion?
Well, that it's very hard to do anything. People really don't consider you human. You are isolated as you move forward, and no one really wants to be your friend.
I see.
You don't cry about it. You pull yourself together and do what needs to be done.
What?
It's kind of a slogan in immigration. You don't cry. You pull yourself together and do what needs to be done, although you want to cry.
I see. Well, I'm staying. Basically, one's chances of remaining alive aren't that small. I sealed up the windows and stocked up on water. I can sleep in the corridor.
Scene 2. Chris. So my mother calls and wakes me up and shouts to the phone, "It's war! It's war! Let's go buy groceries! You don't have a fucking thing!" I get the kids up immediately. "It's war! It's war!" The children howl with laughter. We go and find lines a kilometer long. I try to get into a cheap supermarket, like I have kids and all, but they don't let me in. They do let us into the mega market. They say, "Come on in, Mom." We triumphantly grab a bite to eat at the cafeteria. I guzzle down some beer. I grab a whole basket of groceries, but I have no cash. Can you imagine that? And the ATM isn't working. I'm stuck in this mega market now. I don't know what to do. The girls and I agree to, in short, I'll tell you when I see you.
I think that's the last thing that she said to me as a normal person. After just a few hours of war, Chris turned into a wheezing, choking loudspeaker, spitting out bitches, fuck, punis rats, you won't succeed, choke and die! And things like that. It's said that a man is always uncomfortable alongside a crying woman. I would say it's rather hard to be around a woman burning with hatred for her enemies, though. If she does pay you any attention at some point, she'll have a question for you. Why are you still here and not on the front lines? Well, I can't offer Chris an answer to that. That's why I don't call her anymore.
Scene 3. Fyodor Dostoevsky.
I've been living alone for 2 weeks now. Most of my time is occupied reading news on the internet. However, I have to think about what I do when the electricity goes down and the internet disappears. Sitting in the dark doing nothing will drive you crazy. So I came up with an idea of reading books by candlelight. I already had a box of Polish candles at the market and found my beloved Dostoevsky in my bag. So I will light the candles, sit on the bed in the corridor, and open up the village of Stepanchikovo and its inhabitants.
They planned to start a family game of whist, but these games usually ended with the general suffering such seizures that the general's wife and her retinue lit candles in horror, offered up fervent prayers, told fortunes using beans and cards, went to hand out bread buns in the prisons, and anxiously waited for the afternoon hour, when, once again, they would organize a game of whist, for which they suffered screams, squeals, curses, and even almost beatings for every mistake that was made. The general, when he didn't like something, was never shy before anyone. He squealed like a woman, cursed like a coachman, and sometimes, ripping and scattering cards on the floor while driving his partners away, he even wept with annoyance and anger.
At that very moment, a Russian rocket flew in my apartment window. Not the most subtle plot twist, rather mediocre dramaturgy, but in general, there will be nothing better in the coming years.
Scene 4. Donna and Gloria.
Don't panic. Keep calm. Everything's all right.
How long will we be there?
Well, wait a little, then come back. We'll take a watch.
We just got back from the shelter,
No, Bora, that was this morning.
and we were there all day yesterday.
It wasn't all day. We arrived at night because it was dangerous.
It wasn't just at night. We were there all evening, too.
I know you're upset, Bora, sweetheart, but that's how things are now.
How are they? Why? Why are things normal in other countries but not here?
Now, please, Bora,
Please, what? How long will we be there?
I can't tell you. Nobody knows.
So if you don't know, why are you saying it won't be long?
Okay, so you pack everything. Your charger, your thermos.
Come on, let's go.
Bora, don't shout. Otherwise, I'll forget something in the rush.
You tell me not to shout, but you yell at me. Why do you need a charger now?
Because if the telephone goes dead, we'll have to recharge it.
But why did you start sticking it in my backpack?
Because,
this is my backpack.
Bora, stop it, please. You're letting your nerves get to you. You're becoming hysterical. Can't we just get ready and get a fit for ourselves?
Maybe you're the one getting ready.
Bora, please, I'm begging you.
Please, what?
What's funny is that 10 years ago, I even had a brief crush on her. But she married another guy, had Gloria, and then got divorced. In March, Donna suggested I rent a room from her to save us both money. Now that the wars happened, I deliver drinking water and help her carry things to the shelter and back. In theory, the harsh trials of wartime should bring us together again so that we may finally fall in love for real. But thank God my personal dramaturgy hasn't gotten that toxic yet. Just the thought of sharing a tipsy with her gets me sick. In some ways that pleases me. Life goes on.
We'll go there now and play a game. But where's my telephone?
You already took it, Mom.
Dial me, please.
You already took it. You have it.
Here we go. You got everything?
Robinson, honey, I put it, please, dial my phone. I can't find it.
You just had it in hand.
Yes, I did, but then I put it, oh, here it is.
Donna could have become the ideal EU citizen already. She devoutly believes in the values of liberalism and unquestioningly follows the instructions of the government. As such, when Kiev's mayor's office announces an air alert, she grabs her son and all her emergency backpacks and races headlong to the bomb shelter. I prefer to stay home because it is much more comfortable. And while I can help move things there to the shelter, Gloria, devastated, casts jealous glances at me. Yes, young man, you are not to be envied. You are at the mercy of your tempestuous mother. Will drag you to the stuffy basements of people. Your position is as shitty as they come.
Thank you, Robinson, honey.
We're in touch. You have your charger.
Yes, if something happens, grab our cat and take him down to the basement.
Yes, of course. Here, let me just get a photo of you at the bomb shelter to remember the war lies this week.
But we're so disheveled. Alright, okay.
Still, a few days later, she found some evacuation bus on the internet, and they hurried it off to the blessed Poland. So I remain alone in the apartment. Every day, the encirclement of Kiev draws tighter. Yesterday, the military airfield in Vasilkovo and the Electronic Intelligence Center in Gorbaty were knocked out of action. But I'm glad I don't have to pretend to pay attention while Donna reads me another idiotic news item off the internet with bulging eyes. Moreover, I no longer need to check every time to see if Gloria peed on the toilet. Why hasn't she taught him that yet?
Scene 5. Brooke Johnson at it again.
They say that Hollywood's golden age began during the Great Depression, when movie theaters were an outlet for suffering Americans. Every day, I download an old Woody Allen movie off of a torrent tracker. You can do that now with wartime.
I'm so happy I ran into you. What are you doing here?
My friends lived in this iridescent. What about you?
Me? I'm just out walking. But basically, I decided to move to Paris.
Oh, you'll like it here.
Really?
I'm sure you will. You know, I was thinking of you recently. A new Cole Porter record showed up in the store.
None of you think about me?
Yeah.
Where are you going now? Can I come along?
Yeah.
Oh, starting to rain.
No problem. I'm not afraid of getting wet.
God, the actress Leah Sadiq only plays a bit part in this film. But standing on the banks of the Seine in a summer dress with the wind jostling in her hair, she is gorgeous. Take it easy, Robinson. Even if it were peacetime now, your chances of meeting a girl like that are negligible. So, life goes on.
Don't disparage her. Brooke Johnson is back in business. This time she's subjected to the most delicious torments she's ever experienced. We first see Brooke standing naked in the middle of a dark dungeon. Her sugar daddy uses numerous flexible flogging devices to get things going. Then he lifts her up by the hair on a suspension ring and brings her wet pussy to several hard orgasms. With the aid of a rope, he binds her with weighted clamps, stretching her nipples.
Scene 6. 825.
All right. How about you? Okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. There's no big offensive in Kiev yet. How about Mariupol?
They're shooting.
Where are you going to be? At home?
Yes.
You got food, everything else.
We're lacking nothing.
What do you think? Will it last long?
I don't know. Maybe they'll finish it tomorrow.
How are you feeling, Posh?
All right.
Okay, tell Mom hello. Let's keep in touch.
Wait a minute.
Yeah?
The meter reading.
What meter?
The gas meter. Write this down. 825 cubic meters.
825.
Yeah, that's got to be reported to the Mariupol gas company online.
Yeah, right. I'll pay it. What about electricity?
A little late.
Good. Bye-bye then.
Scene 7. Sticks.
Voice of America is reporting that Russian troops have approached Kiev from the west and northwest. British intelligence says that Russian army is approaching from the east and northeast. As I estimated, I live directly north of the capital. So I guess things aren't so bad. I can still go into the city center. So as not to look suspicious, they're constantly on the lookout for saboteurs. I take a grocery bag with me and put the first book I see into it, not Dostoevsky, God forbid. There are about 5 police officers with machine guns at the entrance to the subway. One beckons me to him and carefully examines my passport. My residence permit is from Mariupol, so I'm a little nervous. How long have you been in Kiev? He says. 15 years now. I figure that must be plenty long enough to have undergone cultural assimilation. Apparently, the policeman thinks so too, and lets me go in. First, I find myself in a lobby filled with people lying around and sitting on blankets who, it seems, have decided to wait here for the end of the war. Then I go further down, onto a platform filled with melancholy travelers and their heavy backpacks. The metro is now the kingdom of hell. Acheron, the river of sorrow, has ceased to flow. Train cars stand stationary on it so that people may rest in them. The train runs only to Styx in intervals of 1 hour. Satisfied with my uncomplicated metaphor, I assume a familiar pose of an inner snob. Each of these people here was on an important matter, while I, as always, am an accidental guest. I think, condescendingly looking at my fellow travelers. Suddenly, I remember that there have been bombings in Mariupol for 2 weeks now. There is no electricity, water, food, or medicine, and that father hasn't been in touch all this time. I even close my eyes because I'm afraid I might see him and mother here. But then I smile. Because parents are immortal gods with whom everything will always be all right.
That was Robinson by Vitaliy Chenskiy. Our next production is going to be the second play and the final play of this afternoon, which is entitled Blue Potatoes and Yellow Guns by Hannah Butalova.
A single light illuminates the upper torso of Nadia Boyko. She sits in the chair at the center of the stage, surrounded by darkness.
First things first, I am not a good person. No, I mean it. Give it some time and you'll realize I always mean what I say. Do you know what makes me awful? I'll tell you. The truth is, I spend most of my free time imagining your country being bombed. Pretty awful, no? You let me in, let me stay, give me a roof over my head and a few quid of benefits, and here I am wondering, St. Paul's Cathedral or Tower Bridge, Big Ben or Waterloo. What would be bombed first?
The single light goes off. Another light switches on, pointing to the back right stage, showing a simple cafe table where John Lecoq wipes sweat off his forehead. Nadia's not seen anymore, but we hear her voice narrate.
I must have let it slip because John Lecoq from Surrey, divorcee, asked me if we should order some drinks, even though his profile claimed he didn't drink since 2001.
John raises his hand, ready to order.
Excuse me.
And that's when I saw her.
The waitress, wide smile, approaches the table.
What a beautiful evening. And you both look beautiful. Are you ready for some starters?
Just a bottle of house wine for now, thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Be right back. Great choice.
The waitress nods with the same wide smile and walks back into the darkness.
She was roughly the same age as her. Similar hair color. Damn, I sensed it coming.
The waitress reappears with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. She half fills the glasses and turns to leave. The light leaves with her, focusing on her straight posture as she walks further down the stage.
It always starts quietly, like a distant howl of a fire jet, inevitably getting louder and louder. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I did manage to quickly turn to John before the memory swallowed me completely.
The light pans away from the waitress, revealing Nadia sitting at the other end of the table.
So what's wrong with your car? You mentioned you had to take it to the garage last week.
Yes, I had to.
His voice grows quiet, being replaced by ambient sounds of a busy hospital. John continues telling the story, animating it by hand gestures, but we can't hear a word of what he's saying.
She was born in May 1986, 2 weeks after the Chernobyl explosion. The government tried to brush it under the carpet, pretended the situation was completely under control and there was nothing to worry about, but I could sense the fear in our medical personnel. Those gray-faced, overweight Soviet women who used to slap us for crying out of prenatal pain started asking us strange questions like, how are we feeling and does it hurt more than usual? I shared a ward with a skinny woman called Tanya, who claimed to understand chemistry, kept saying that our children was going to be born mutants. I didn't know what that word meant, but it didn't sound good. She kept rocking back and forth in her bed and crying all night long until a butcher of a midwife told her if she keeps unsettling the other women, she'll get a cesarean without anesthetic. We knew she wasn't joking. Tanya started using a pillow to muffle her cries, but at least we could sleep again. Not that the sleep became easily. My pregnancy was already complicated, and that's why I was sent to a proper hospital, Kherson, all the way from our little village, Chervanya Rana. Adam, my husband, was working on a building site on the outskirts of Kyiv, and he sent me a telegram saying that the transport system had been messed up after the explosion, but that he would try to make it home as soon as possible. He was so close to Chernobyl, just under 100 kilometers. Will he come back again as well? I kept asking myself. Tanya's fear was everywhere, like radiation itself. I never believed in God, It wasn't allowed. But as I felt the first contraction roll over my body, I bit my lips and prayed. I prayed in my thoughts so that the state couldn't overhear me. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. Pain was too much. Or at least that's what I thought back then.
We hear a cry of a newborn. The light moves from John to Nadia as she sat at the table, but is addressing the audience.
But both my prayers worked. They never have since. But my little girl was born healthy, pink-cheeked, and very, very loud. They called her Lyuba. It's one of two words for love in the Ukrainian language, and in Russian, actually. Now here I must stay. Not that it did matter to me. We spoke Ukrainian in the village and broken Russian when we had to go to town. You would get an occasional smirk or a wrinkled nose for your village fool accent, but it never bothered me. My husband, Vadim, was different. Vadim used to practice Russian in front of the mirror before going on work trips to Kyiv. I always laughed at him, which drove him up the wall, but I couldn't help it. Imagine a dozen country bumpkins all trying to sound like Moscow folk in front of the party supervisors. Vadim would get all red-faced like a ripe Ukrainian beetroot and tell me that he's doing it for our sake. And if he didn't speak Russian, he would never rise up the career ladder. Vadim was saying that when we have kids, we will speak to them in Russian only, so they can have opportunities in the future. Eventually, I gave in, if only to be spared from looking at his red face, clouded by alcohol and long years of suppressed anger. And boy, was he angry. The first years of our marriage, I tried to figure out the source of his anger, tried to be patient and understanding, even changed my hair a few times. Nothing worked. Till it clicked. He was angry with himself, hated everything that he was. Too Ukrainian to thrive in a communist state, a poor village boy with a talent for painting. That nearly proved his downfall. I'm not being dramatic. As a boy, Vadim skipped the farm work to paint. He stored his works in a barn, kept them hidden from his father, the World War II veteran who came back physically crippled and emotionally broken, just like so many other Ukrainian men. He wasn't the biggest fan of Vadim's hobby, and one day, when he found the hidden paintings, he set them on fire. He must have been very drunk because alongside the drawings, he burnt the barn and himself. Vadim tried to save him, but it was too late. 10 years later, when we met at a dance, I couldn't tear my eyes off the quiet boy with curly hair who kept his hand in his pockets and hadn't danced once all night. And only when, fueled by 2 liters of homemade wine my friend and I had stolen from the cellar, I invited him for a dance. He nodded in silence and gripped my hand. Only then did I catch the sight of his scarred, pinched skin and missing fingernails. I learned the truth a year later. He never touched a paintbrush again. I even had to paint our fence. Being 6 months pregnant, you can imagine I wasn't too happy, but there weren't many things that Vadim wouldn't do for me, at least when we were still young and in love, so I did it myself. The fence was green, but we had a bit of yellow paint too, and I painted some sunflowers across it. I knew they weren't good, but they reminded me of my childhood, and I was nonetheless proud of my work. One evening, we had his friends over, and Vadim got very drunk. Went out for a smoke and disappeared for at least half an hour. I went outside to check and found him on his knees by the fence in front of an exceptionally ugly sunflower, crying like a child. I don't think he saw me. That night, when he was snoring like a locomotive, I got out of bed and painted the flowers out. I must have gotten the amounts wrong or something, because instead of evenly green, the fence now had washed out blotches in the middle of each section. For months, our neighbors mocked it, but I paid them no attention. Vadim's silence I interpreted as gratitude. He was still angry, but never violent. It was enough for me. Then our Lyuba was born, and the anger in his eyes went out like a chimney. Smoke it down. The weekends of drinking with his mates were replaced with days and evenings on the living room floor, the only space big enough for a child to play. Instead of bringing me catalogs from his trips to keep, he started bringing dolls and cotton dresses. Layuba and the dolls were inseparable, despite the fact that she tried to bite, drown in the well, set fire to, throw to the dog, and chuck out of the bus window, every single one of them. The one I found in the stove ended up with half a cotton dress and only one arm, but Layuba refused to give it up. Badam promised he'd buy her a new one, prettier and bigger, but Layuba kept shaking her head and making a deep noise at the back of her throat. Badam scratched his head and disappeared into the shed. A few hours later, he presented something bulky, carved out of wood, with a door and a single window. Prison cell? I asked. House, he shrugged. Hospital, yelled Layuba. Whilst me and Badam were taking a moment to unfreeze from shock, Layuba snatched the hospital from his hands and enrolled her first patient, the fire survivor. The one-armed doll just about fit inside, and Layuba used the window to put her little hand through to caress the doll. She narrated her actions with every solemn shh. I remember turning to Badam and saying, I think she'll make an excellent doctor. He replied, or a prison guard. We laughed. We laughed and laughed. Sometimes I wonder, why do I remember that day so well? Maybe because it was the last time we were truly happy.
Are you ready to order, or would you like some more time?
The light grows wider, illuminating the table and all three of them.
Fish and chips for me, please.
More time with you, please.
Excuse me?
Sorry. I meant if you could give me more time, please. And sorry, foreign brain.
Whereabouts are you from? Or wait, shall I guess? I'm pretty good at geography. Or I was in school.
Just to warn you, there is one wrong answer.
You mean there is one correct answer?
John lets out a polite thought.
Would you say something in your native language to give me a hint?
I don't think you need a hint. It's the country most mentioned in the news, so it's an easy guess.
Oh my god, that's easy.
The waitress slaps her for it.
Palestine?
John half coughs, half chokes on his wine. Nadia fills the net.
Ukraine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, got nothing to apologize for.
I mean it. I am sorry. It's just the guy who owns this place is actually half Estonian. So we have been supporting Ukraine, you know, raising money and stuff. We even have a flag above the bar in the corner.
The light promptly pans right and upwards. Half shaded by the bottle tops, the pride flag is hanging. The light goes back to the hero table.
I mean, there was one before. The manager must have changed it recently, but it's only for a month, you know, to support the queer community. Not that it's more important than Ukraine, of course.
The light starts enclosing on the waitress. Nadia and John disappear.
Every minority, community is important. There's so many Brits that we should be supporting. Maybe that's why there are months where some are more important than others. So much wrong with this world. You know, I'm sure the Ukrainian flag will go right back up. In fact, I'll talk to our manager. We should hang it right next to the pride one. Support both communities at the same time, right? That must be the right thing to do, right? Right?
The waitress is out of breath by the end of her speech. She looks around in panic, as if looking for help that should come any minute now.
I'll be honest, she lost me by all the communities are important opener. Nothing could be further from the truth. Ask any Ukrainian. Also, the more she talked, the less I saw the resemblance with my Layuba, to which I tried to cling so desperately. I just wasn't ready to let her go, you know. I'm still not sure I am.
The light reveals Nadia, sat in a chair on the front left stage.
Those of you that are parents themselves will know what I mean. And those who aren't, well, imagine that everything you love in this life, a parent, a sibling, a career, a pet, or your favorite houseplant, are all miraculously materialized in a living, breathing, walking being. A little being that loves you so much that your mere presence takes the pain away, scares off the demons from under the bed, and soothes a bleeding paper cut. The being that looks at you with so much hope and trust and dependence and adoration that it takes your breath away. and you pray for the first time in your life, not out of fear, but out of something that seemed very foreign in your Soviet state, out of gratitude. Out of gratitude for being alive, and an endless gratitude for having this little child in your life, in your living room, in your arms. I was never educated, very poorly read, and without any strong political opinions. A perfect citizen of a perfect Soviet country. But looking at Lyuba, I couldn't help thinking anti-Soviet thumbs. I couldn't help but see the sorrows of my grandmother who had to boil tree bark to feed her 5 children. Only 2 of which, including my mother, had survived the Great Famine. It wasn't permitted to talk about, and the fear of the night knock on the door was strong within my mother. So I had to piece together my family history from the drunken confessions of the elderly villagers. You might wonder what a night knock on the door is. Well, let me explain it to you. Have you ever experienced a night in a Ukrainian village? Probably not. It's not exactly a dream destination for the Westerners. I'm not surprised, not that I've ever been, but I imagine that a night in Greece or Spain is a much more appealing prospect. The Ukrainian night is different. The Ukrainian night is full of stars, empty of progress. It is a night of loud frogs from nearby ponds, of the barking of restless dogs and relentless grasshoppers. Every sound blends into this perfect harmony of belonging, the sound of home, the sound of homeland. The worst sound that could disrupt this ambiance was the sound of heels against the hard rock roads, followed by a loud knock on somebody's door. The footwear the villagers wore was soft, almost too soft for the rainy season when the roads became muddy and sludgy. Nobody had the hard-heeled boots but the Bolsheviks, the NKVD. You might know them as the KGB. Well, before they became the KGB, or branding is the word, they were the NKVD. And trust me, nobody knocked on your door like in the middle of the night unless you were the NKVD. You couldn't mistake that knock for the knock of a drunk husband or a lost wanderer. Their knock was always different. It was a knock of confidence, a knock of a sentence. Don't ask me why I know those things, I just do. It's in my DNA. And if you don't believe that, you should have seen how Lyuba reacted to a postman's knock. She would tense, stop playing and freeze, showing the fear I passed onto her with my jeans. It was a knock like that that took my grandfather away. Everyone knew that after the knock, nobody comes back. Nobody survives the knock. My grandmother knew that too. So when her husband was taken away as a cripple, a term used to describe penny pinchers, money grabbers, or as we would describe them today, property owners. She knew he would never come back. She knew that her children who inherited his freckles, who should have inherited his land, the land given to him by his ancestors, the land on which Ukrainian Cossacks, and yes, Cossacks are Ukrainian, not Russian fighters, and if you think otherwise, see me after the credits, bled and died for the independence of Ukraine. This land was to be claimed by the state, and if she dared as much as cast them an angry look, all of her children would be taken away too. So she kept her mouth shut. When I took enough people away, they came back and started taking away the food. My grandmother sneaked away in the nights to roam the empty fields to try and look for any grain, any seed, anything that would keep her children away from the bony arms of death. And she succeeded, albeit less than half. 2 out of her 5 children survived. To this day, I have no idea. Where did she find the strength? Must have been her Cossack blood. She carried on. Having seen her 3 eldest children die, swollen up from hunger with foam collected around their shrunken, cracked lips, my grandma carried on. She signed up to a kolkhoz, a form of state farming, and went to work on the land that used to belong to her family. For the government that starved her, her children, and took away her husband. Mom always said she always sang during work. Dazzling sun or burning wind, bent over for hours on end, Grandma worked and sang. She knew dozens of folk songs. Her voice was so beautiful that the pig-faced Nazi soldiers that were stationed in our village during the Second World War would order her to sing whilst they emptied the basket. Grandma did as she was told, and occasionally the Germans would throw chunks of bread on the floor for her children. Mom said that's how they survived the Second Hunger. As soon as the Red Army liberated our region, people were forced back to work on the farms. And that's where, on a cloudless day, singing as she bent over the black soil, Grandma stepped on a landmine that ended her life. We never found out whether that mine was left by the Nazis or by the Soviets. I suppose it doesn't really matter. She died at the age of 34. She died singing Ukrainian folk songs. She died singing of love and freedom in the land that used to belong to the Ukrainians. She died never knowing that such a country would come into existence, that the land would once again belong to the simple people, before someone else decided otherwise.
The light pans from Nadia to the center of the stage. You see a silhouette of a woman in a long white shirt and a traditional Ukrainian headscarf. She sat with her back to the audience, rocking a wooden cradle. She sings the last verse of a Ukrainian lullaby. The night is coming.
Hey, hey, the night has come to us. It's time to go to bed. We're all the little kids. Grow up, you boy, along with the cherry tree, and that the fortune will be generous for both of you. Grow up, you boy, along with the cherry tree, and that the fortune will be generous for both of you.
The light goes out as her voice fades. The light comes back on, revealing Nadia sat in the chair on the front right stage.
My Layuba had a beautiful voice too. Can you inherit her voice? Is it genetic? I have no idea, but if it is, she got it from my grandma. My own voice sounds like a rusty Soviet drill, or so Vadim used to say. I never met my grandma. Only had a black and white photo of a sad-eyed woman who looked twice her age. I never heard her voice, but as Layuba grew up and went from crying to talking and then to singing, I would stop mid-cooking and listen and close my eyes and feel the presence of my stoic grandmother. She was still alive, in me and in my daughter. Like I've said, I am not very educated and nobody would ever accuse me of being a patriot, but Layuba made me feel. She had my grandmother's voice. She had my grandfather's freckles. Even her blonde hair had a red shade that reminded me of the fire that destroyed the barn of my husband's dreams. Layuba was a strong-willed and fiercely independent. She was 5 when the Soviet Union fell apart. Overnight, our world was turned upside down. Vadim was beyond himself with anger and fear for what was to come. Kept going on and on and on about how we wouldn't survive as an independent country, how the West will crush our economy and we will become starving beggars. I paid him no attention. Secretly, I was glad that my daughter and my country will grow up together. Of course, it wasn't easy, but if you listened to a fraction of what I've been rambling on about, you'd probably realize by now that difficulty is not a foreign concept to our family. It hadn't been for generations. Naturally, Vadim lost his job. Millions of people did. We weren't special in that regard. The wall fell first, physically then in the heads of the youth. I suppose our walls were older, stronger. They were cemented of the very core of our beings, inseparable, unmovable. People like me and Vadim grew up with walls around us, and therefore had to build them inside. To make sense of the world, to fit into the system. So when the exterior walls fell apart, we were lost, confused, clinging to our inner walls in vain hope to find any security. Layuba's walls hadn't had a chance to cement themselves to her core. They were still thin, malleable. She welcomed the new world. She welcomed the loud music, the provocative clips on MTV, the colorful candies, the wild hair, and the violent films. She begged Vadim to take her to Kyiv, to where the first McDonald's opened in 1997. She wanted a Western CD player, She wanted to be a part of the global pop culture. Despite his aversion to this new Ukraine, Vadim, to his credit, did try his best to make sure that Lyuba didn't grow up in deficiency. Deficiency, what a strange word. In my childhood and adolescence, it meant empty shelves in malls, used to get a loaf of bread and 2 types of perfumes available, the red Moscow and the other one. In this new world, deficiency looked and smelled like crowded restaurants in Kiev, like first BMWs and Toyotas, like men in leather shoes and heavy jackets, like the news of people going missing and factories being overtaken by the bandits, racketeering oligarchs, the EU, Eastern Ukraine, Donbass, Western Ukraine, nationalists, Budapest Memorandum, the consequences of Budapest, Crimea, Russian military bases. It was so much, too much. My mother always told me that men should be worked. Yes, I too wonder how this quote made the final edit. Maybe because it can be interpreted as mankind. Anyway, maybe I should have listened to her. Maybe I should have been stricter to that. Force him to look for a full-time job rather than sulk around nearby building sites. It wasn't good for his, what is the phrase we use, mental health? Trust me, a woman in her mid-40s from a village Turbany Ranok in southern Ukraine didn't spare much thought to her husband's mental health. I didn't pay attention, or simply choose not to. To Vadim's heavier, more frequent drinking, to his constant anger, to how he preferred to talk to the TV more than to me. He sat in front of that screen, while Slyuba, still a child, craved his attention, his presence in her life. He argued with the politicians, spat at that screen, asked for more booze, snored and woke up again, coughing, swearing, hating. I should have been stricter. I should have thrown out that TV, just like I painted over our fence, to spare him the misery. And our little Lyuba heard all of this, seen all of this. I thought she was too small to understand, too small to care. But it must have entered her core, moved her walls around, because as she entered adolescence, I started sensing an aura of restlessness around her, impatience, rebelliousness. She came as no surprise to me when in 2003, at the age of 16, she packed her bags and announced that she was moving to Kiev to study medicine. She said she wanted to be a pediatrician. Vadim laughed, and I saw his own anger reflect in her face. Don't be ridiculous, he said. Even if your mother and I sell this house and our cow, it wouldn't be enough to bribe your way into a medical university. Who said anything about bribing? I'll do it my way, the honest way, Lyuba replied. You think honesty will take you a long way in this godforsaken country? Good luck with that. Thank you, Father. With that, she got up and left. Vadim turned the TV back on. I rushed to our bedroom, took an old chest, my grandmother's, from underneath the bed. It was my little piggy bank. Everything valuable I owned. Not much, just $80 I started to save for any medical emergency, or if luck would have it, for my funeral. I always hoped I'd die quickly from a stroke or a heart failure, like my mother. So it would be cheap. Anyway, I ran after Lyuba and gave her the cash. We both hugged and cried and kissed. I wasn't scared, not back then. Perhaps I was too unintelligent to be. I knew everything was going to be all right. I knew our little girl would find a way, and if not, she'll make her own, honest way. She was brave like that.
The light goes out. See Lyuba at the back left stage. She sat on a chair, bent over a crate of empty bottles. She is cutting through a white sheet of material, perhaps an old shirt, with scissors, and in front of it is a piece of clothing in each bottle. Hear a bell of a ring come. She takes her phone, looks at the screen with a sigh, presses the answer button. She puts it on loudspeaker and goes back to her task.
Yes, father?
What are you up to?
Not much.
Not much.
That's right.
Listen, you're not getting yourself in any kind of trouble, are you?
What makes you think so?
The fact that I know you.
Loud words from someone who calls me twice a year.
Your mother gives me constant updates. Listen, Layla, I know how hot-headed you are. I'm only calling to warn you to stay away from all that trouble. You're being played. You just don't realize it yet.
And who told you that? Wait, let me guess. Your TV told you that?
I don't need any TV to know that. You're still young. You don't understand.
I am almost 30, father. I think I understand a thing or two now. And maybe you, too, would understand what's actually happening here if only you found the strength to switch off your bloody, separatist channel and come help us build a new economy.
Angry, she gets up from the chair, abandoning making Molotov cocktails. Madam bitterly laughs into the phone.
Is that what you think you're doing? You think burning tires and attacking policemen will bring you a new country?
What choice do we have? Sit and watch as your pro-Russian criminal sells our country back to the Muscovites? At least we're doing something. We're trying.
She fights back with tears.
I wish I could see them, Dad. The people. There are so many students here. Elderly. From all around Ukraine. All working as one. Helping, cooking, volunteering, singing.
You and your bloody singing! The only national sport Ukraine is good at.
You're so wrong, so brainwashed. Go on, tell me how American is sponsoring Maiden.
Who else?
My God, how does the saying go? We should not be afraid of Moscow lies, but of Ukrainian myths.
Don't you dare quote those nationalists at me. They tried to ruin this country 100 years ago. We're put in order, and now they scuttle out again like bloody cockroaches from underneath the kitchen floor. Ukraine this, democracy that. America just wants our coal, our metal, our resources. They couldn't give a damn about your stupid country, your stupid history, your stupid language.
It's our country, Father. Our history. Have you forgotten how they starved the great-grandparents? How the family land was taken away? Stupid language. My God, listen to yourself. 50 years old and you still can't speak fluent Russian. A glass of wine and you're singing Ukrainian like a bloody Nightingale. And you know why? Because that's who you are. That's your blood and mine. We should have a say in our future. We, people, should decide.
My country was destroyed 22 years ago by the same Western evil that is trying to take over yours now. But you're too naive to see it, too brainwashed.
Enough! Madam, give me that phone.
The second light appears on Nadia, who's positioned to the right back of the stage on the opposite side of Layuba. Layuba resumes making the Molotov cocktails.
Darling, are you safe? What is going on? Is it as bad as they say on the news?
I'm okay. Don't worry. We're being careful. And the boys, they protect us when the police gets too close. They look after us.
Is Boyan with you?
Not now, but he has been. Of course, since day one.
What's going to happen to his job?
Mom, he's not going back to the police. And after what happened. Anyway, they probably found out by now I'm trying to get vaccinated.
My God, what's going to happen after?
There is no after. I wish you and Dad can understand that. We only have now. And if we don't fight now, we won't have our after.
Nadia throws a quick glance sideways as to check if Adam is eavesdropping on their conversation and lowers her voice.
I don't think it's going to last for a long time. He's too weak. Yanukovych, he'll run away and leave us alone. We need to hold on for a little bit longer.
Of course, we're not giving up. Not until Kira's sons.
Good. There's one thing that your father is right about, though. You need to stay out of trouble.
You're at thousands. What are they going to do? Shoot at us?
Of course they won't. He wouldn't dare, but still, it's those bandits he brought over. They're violent, and I presume paid well enough to not show mercy to any Protestants.
We're strong too. Don't worry. Everything's going to be all right.
Of course, keep me updated.
Mom, I love you, okay?
I love you too. So does your father in his own way.
Yeah, I know. I'll speak to you later.
Layuba, almost in a rush, disconnects the call. Instead of going back to her work, she drops her head in her hands and sits, motionless. The light illuminating Layuba starts to fade. slowly. Nadia still clutches to her mobile. Layuba cannot hear her anymore, but she still says,
I love you so very much.
Nadia finally puts the phone away, takes a moment to gather her thoughts. Then, she turns to the audience, continuing her story.
He did dare to start shooting at them. The first was Sergei Nagoyan, a 20-year-old activist of Armenian descent. Then Michael from Belarus, then Roman Senyuk. Then we stopped counting for a while. I guess we'll never find out whether Yanukovych decided that shooting the Protestants from the rooftops was a great idea, or whether he was following the orders from Kremlin. At that point, it mattered little. He had to go. There was no doubt about that. Mayuba rarely picked up the phone. I never forgot him. She would send me short, hectic messages at odd hours, alive, assisting with patients, safe, slept for a bit, back to work. I spent all my waking hours in front of the TV, trying to find her face on the news reports, dreading to see her name in the list of the deceased ones. Finally, on the 21st of February, 4 months after the protest started, Yanukovych fled to Russia. His draconian laws were revoked, early elections were called. We've won. We've won. God, how relieved I felt. How inspired. There it was, the historic justice. Finally, Ukraine will become part of the civilized Western society. Finally, we will be recognized by the world. The Russian troops entered Crimea and Donbass a few days later. The whole nation was back in front of the screens, dumbfounded, paralyzed with fear. Layuba came home 3 weeks later, disheveled, exhausted, smelling of smoke.
The light grows wider, revealing Layuba sat at Nadia's feet, head on her lap.
Go down and listen to the army. He's going to Donbass to fight.
Nadia starts caressing her daughter's hair.
I'm glad you're home. Your father has cancer.
Quite abruptly, the light goes out. The light comes back on, illuminating Nadia's upper torso. She sat in the center of the stage. Layuba is gone. She opens her mouth as if to speak, then closes it again, changing her mind, struggling to find the right words.
How does one describe the war? 2 years later, I still don't know how. Luckily, apart from an NHS therapist I was coerced into seeing, nobody asks me that anymore. The farther I am from home, the less questions are asked, the more everything seems unreal, fantasy-like. As I made my way from Poland through Germany and France, and finally to the UK, the less understanding I saw in people's eyes, as if the geographical borders were like optical lenses that made the war seem more and more distorted. Don't get me wrong, I completely understand it. If you ever had a pang of guilt somewhere in the deep pit of your stomach, after you've seen a particularly heart-wrenching BBC news report, I'm not doing enough. I should be helping more. Poor people. Well, stop. Take a good look at me and look no further. I am Ukrainian. And what do you think I did when the invasion of Donbass started? When tons of thousands of Ukrainian boys, fresh from universities and maiden protests, went to defend our homeland with no training, no weapons, no knowledge of how to resist a fully equipped army of the biggest country in the world. You guessed it. Nothing. I did nothing. I watched the news again from the moment I woke up to the moment I passed out on the living room couch. I cried a lot. I talked about it with women in the local shop. But apart from that, I, Ukrainian, did nothing. I bet you that selfishly millions of us thought, Donbass is far. They'll never reach us. We're safe. My house, my garden are safe. So what if they take Donbass? They're separatists anyway. And those who are not have fled to other Ukrainian cities. So let them take it. Take it and leave the rest of us in peace. In case you were wondering, I'm not fantasizing, I'm quoting my own thoughts. As I said in the beginning, I am not a very nice person. I am tired, unlettered, working class woman whose husband was dying of cancer and who selfishly wanted to be left alone. Vadim died in January 2015, a month before they signed the second Minsk agreements that saw Russia walk out with our Crimea and half of Donbass in their pocket. Again, selfishly, I was relieved that Vadim's diagnosis came before Lyuba had a chance to do something reckless, like go off to Donbass as a volunteer medic. If she didn't feel like her main duty was to stay at home to look after her father, I am sure her other sense of duty would compel her to do exactly that. Of course, we knew it was a battle lost. Nobody survived stage 4 blood cancer, but Vadim managed to resist it for almost a year. So for almost a year, we had our Lyuba back with us. Just before Christmas, Vadim asked to be moved to the living room couch, closer to the TV, and he never stood up again. As the pain grew worse, Lyuba would go to town and get morphine and some other Western painkillers. They seemed to ease his pain enough for him to sit up and ask to watch the news. He didn't swear at the politicians anymore. His gaze became more and more distant with each passing day. At nights, I forced Lyuba out to get some sleep and swapped with her, sitting in the armchair, drifting in and out of nightmares. That night, I woke up to Vadim moaning quietly, shifting on the couch, his eyes half closed. "Tell her to stop crying, Nadia. Tell her to stop," he said. I grabbed his hand to calm him down. "What are you talking about?" I asked. For a while, he was silent. I even started to think that he went back to sleep. But then he was shaking his head again. "Tell her to stop crying about the doll. I'll go to Kyiv and buy her a new one. Tell her she shouldn't cry. I'll go to Kyiv soon. I just need to rest." I didn't let go of his hand until he breathed his last breath. I since read that thyroid and bone marrow cancer spiked in Ukraine after the Chernobyl explosion. I know, you might say it's been so long ago, but what if it was radiation that pierced Vadim's body, turning his cells into tiny mutants, just like my crazy maternity ward neighbor predicted? It's just taken those mutants a long time to overtake him. After all, he was a stubborn man, my husband, a Ukrainian ox. Speaking of, you probably never heard of them, but in our mountains, in the Carpathians, we have a small ethnic group called Petzels. Colorful clothes, funny accent, that sort of thing. Well, Vadim told me once his work took him around, so he's been places. Anyway, he said to me that some of the Petzels believe that we live in hell. That is, our planet is the hell. Whoever is born here must have sinned in some other form of life. He was sent to live on Earth as punishment. I laughed at that belief, like a good Soviet citizen back at that time. But now that the Soviet state is dead, and my husband is dead, and many more are dead, I start wondering, maybe there's some truth to it. I tried to read the Bible shortly after Vadim's funeral, following our priest's advice that it would give me some comfort and explanation, but I found neither. That's when I remembered what Vadim told me about Petzels and their beliefs. Apparently, they also had a wedding tradition of putting a yoke over a bride and a groom to symbolize the hardships of life that awaits them. Charming people, no? Well, if there is truth in what the Hutzels are saying, we became very close to it on the 24th of February, 2022. How do I describe it? Lyuba used to love that American cartoon about the Greek gods. I wouldn't remember the title, but I do remember catching a glimpse of it one day. An angry Zeus raises his hand, sky grows dark, the lightning appears in his hand, and boom, he strikes the simple mortals. I can't say for the others, but that's what it felt like to me. Some primal part of my brain stroked my body like lightning with the painful awareness. Those are not fireworks. Then another one. Wake up and run. My body obeyed. I got out of bed, started dressing, the kettle on. But in my head, I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. I was in hell.
A faint whistle can be heard, a flying missile. As it becomes louder, drawing near, Nadia goes down on the floor of the stage. Now only the empty chair is seen. Boom! Missile lands, making the chair shake. Then the lights go out. The stage is in total darkness. We hear, but don't see. Nadia's mobile rings. We hear her press the answer button, and Lyoba's voice fills the space.
Mother, Mom, can you hear me?
I think so.
Mom, you must go down to the basement right now. Take water, some warm clothes.
I can't.
What? Speak louder, I cannot hear you.
There's no space in the cellar.
What are you talking about?
But the potato harvest, all over the floor, drying.
We hear Lyoba take a deep breath over the phone.
Mom, the war has started. Do you not understand? Just move the potatoes to one side.
The light comes back on. Nadia is back in the chair, same position.
I moved the potatoes, by the way. Made some space for myself and then Mila, my 82-year-old neighbor, who didn't have a cellar. I brought us some water and warm blankets, and we sat there the whole day, listening to the explosions and the roar of military planes. Ours or enemies. Just before the sunset, I walked outside, breaking my promise to Lyoba. I needed to know. Obviously, the planes were flying too high and too fast, but I thought, hoped. I caught a glimpse of blue and yellow paint on one of them. He gave me some reassurance. I sneaked back into the house to grab a bowl of buckwheat and some cutlery, checked my phone, 32 missed calls from my younger sister, and went back to the basement to feed myself and then Mila. You're probably surprised to hear that I have a sister. I don't mention her much because she hasn't been around for a while. Nastya, my sister, is 11 years younger than me and very, very different. She despised the village life and used the first opportunity for early marriage to move to Kirsten, away from frogs and cows, as she put it. But Kirsten wasn't far enough for her. So when the Soviet Union fell, she started corresponding with some English gentleman, and a year later, he came to visit her. I won't describe our first encounter. Not much happened apart from us drinking in silence. Madame didn't approve, as she wasn't divorced yet. Nastya followed her Englishman around with the Russian-English dictionary. I have no idea how they communicated back then. Her English was rusty at best. Maybe they didn't do much talking, but they must have been doing some other exciting activities because after just 4 days, her Englishman scratched his already balding head, took Nastya, and together they rode off into the sunset, away from frogs, cows, and her first husband. The next time she came back was 4 years later for a mother's funeral. I'll never forget how she appeared on my doorstep, white coat, high heels, stylish haircut. I was so relieved to see her, to share the grief of losing our mother. I rushed to hug her. "We smell of onions," she told me and pulled back. That scorn on her face that I used to spot occasionally ever since she entered adolescence was fully formed now. It never seemed to leave her face. "Look, here are some proper toys." She put a bag with presents in front of Lyoba. "These women look dreadful," she whispered to me at the funeral. "How can you live without taxis?" She scorned when we waited for the bus to go to the market. "It's pathetic." She shook her head, and I showed her the new fountain that they opened in Kirsten. As always, nothing was good enough for her. I'm not confrontational by nature, so I didn't argue with her, but neither did I join her in the lynching of our homeland. After a while, she must have realized she won't find a comrade in me and changed her tune from Ukraine is awful to England is so great. I asked her questions and listened and pretended that our mother was not rotting in the ground, that everything was all right, but of course it wasn't. She could sense it too. It all exploded when I dragged her to the village and shop to get some ice cream for Layuba. The woman at the till must have recognized my sister from childhood, but wasn't entirely sure, so she half asked, half exclaimed, "Oh my God, you must be Nadia's sister." "Yeah, Anastasia," Nastia said with that foreign pulling intonation. She followed that, Anastasia, with a shake of her head, like in a shampoo commercial. I burst out laughing before I could stop myself. To my horror, the woman at the till joined me. Maybe it was cruel, but picture this, a little shop in the village of Chiranyarena. It's 1995 outside, and this woman in a ridiculous white coat, who used to queue barefoot for bread in that very shop some 10 years ago, was standing here shaking her fake blonde hair, introducing herself as Anastasia. To me, it looked more pathetic than our new fountain. Nasty got terribly offended, and the next day she announced that her Englishman is suffering in her absence, and she packed her suitcase and left. Don't get me wrong, she is my sister and I love her, but she didn't come back to Ukraine after, ever again. But we keep in touch, first by post, then by text. And Vadim bought me my first mobile. If not for her, I wouldn't be here. It was Nastia who convinced me to come here after everything that happened with, I don't want to get in my head of myself. Back to the cellar. I knew Nastia was worried about us all, and that in good consciousness I had to pick up the phone and tell her that I'm alive, that Layuba is all right. But I simply couldn't. Nothing was all right. My brain could only focus on finding some candles and an old kerosene lamp, so me and my Mila won't have to spend the night in complete darkness. Sleeping in the back of the house was out of question. Towards nightfall, the planes started flying lower, so we could hear them clearer. The explosions intensified. Moreover, I had sworn to Layuba that I will spend the night in the cellar if she'd promised to sleep in a tube station. I won't repeat the news. You know very well how it went. Kyiv in 3 days, the advance on all frontiers, the swift occupation of the northern Ukraine that borders Belarus. I had hope. I didn't believe that our capital can be taken. After all, Layuba lived there. She promised she'll be safe, right? Kherson fell on day 8. Now, in addition to missiles, we could hear the rumble of the artillery. We knew it was a matter of days before they reach our village, some 40 kilometers to the northwest. Electricity and the internet were cut off. We didn't know what was happening in the rest of Ukraine. I had no way of talking to Layuba anymore. I prayed that she wouldn't decide to come home. Younger people, whole families, loaded their cars and left. Mostly old people stayed, or the stupid ones like me. Don't ask me why. I couldn't tell that. And to this day, I don't know what made me stay. Objectively, there is no explanation. But I was thinking about the land that I needed to prepare for the spring season, of my chickens, of the Mila, of her fat cat that needed feeding. Sat in the cellar, I looked around the cherry and apricot jams, marinated tomatoes, and fruit compotes I've prepared for that winter. At the crates with onions and some leftover carrots and my potatoes. I couldn't leave it for the Russian army, could I? I thought surely they won't be taking away our food in the 1930s. I heard their trucks in the morning. Don't go, then Milo begged. But I couldn't stay indoors anymore. The safety mechanism in my brain must have exhausted itself and was taking a break, because it didn't stop me from climbing up from the cellar and walking towards the fence. right by the road. That's when I saw them for the first time. Speeding through our village were the ugly Soviet trucks with their painted Z. I had to hold onto the fence to stay upright. They were here, Chervony-Ranak, trying to take away our land again. I wasn't being brave. I simply couldn't move, so I stood, clutching to the fence. Then I thought I could hear some Ukrainian. I turned my head and saw another villager, that woman who used to work at the shop. She stood outside her house, right by the road, filming them. I opened my mouth to scream at her to tell her to stop and go inside, but I couldn't say a word. There she stood, apron on, filming the Russians. Davey, Davey, she kept saying. It means come on, or go on. A fully loaded grad missile launcher drove past us. I'm not afraid of you, she yelled. Come on, boys, I've got arsenic. Somebody must have waved at her because she yelled again. Davey, Davey, wave at me all you want. I'm not afraid. I hope you all die. She took another breath. God forbid me for swearing. Forgive me for swearing, but I hope they all fucking die. Another grad passed us. That one was empty. Occupants, scum, she kept yelling. Go home, you are not welcome here. Another grad and another. So many, I thought. There were so many. How could we win against this locust plague? My legs gave in. I sank to the ground. My hope started to falter. The knock on our basement door came a few hours later, when the infantry caught up with the vehicles. My legs were stiff. The stiff voice inside my head said that delaying will only make the matter worse. So I forced myself to walk up the stairs and open the door. 3 machine gun barrels were inches away from my face. My vision was blurred from both sunlight and fear, but I don't remember much from my first encounter with the Russians. Not that they were in the mood for small talk. The fattest one barked some orders, and one of the soldiers went inside of the basement. He dragged Ludmila out. She sank to the ground next to me. I started emptying my cellar, with one soldier standing guard, still aiming his gun at us. I watched them take away our food supplies. I could feel the sun almost burning at the back of my head. This isn't right, I thought. The February sun shouldn't be so warm. The sun shouldn't be shining at all. How dare it? That's all I remember thinking about. Husband? Fat one asked me. I shook my head. Dead. Other relatives? He carried on. Speak normally. He went red in the face, just like Madame used to. I had a brain freeze, not quite knowing what caused his anger. Then I realized he couldn't understand me. Bullshit, I repeated in Russian. The language tasted like ash in my mouth. As I said before, growing up, we spoke Ukrainian in the village and attempted to speak Ukrainian version of Russian in big cities like Kherson. The language dilemma never bothered me until that moment. Suddenly, it felt alien. It felt wrong. It felt like betrayal. I couldn't keep my head up straight anymore. The black boots kept moving to and from until finally they were gone. Ludmila's sobs brought me back to reality. I grabbed her shoulders, less in reassurance, more as an anchor to bring myself back on my feet. Stay here. Don't worry. I've got more food in the house. We won't starve, I promise. I walked back to my house. The front door was open. I never locked it. But did I really leave it like that? I stepped inside. Everything was thrown upside down. All my belongings on the floor, even the bed sheets. All mud-stained and filthy. The vintage glass cabinet where I kept cutlery for special occasions had a door missing. Did they really take my Chinese? Why? I needed to. I had to fix it. The glass creaked underneath my feet, making me stop. I looked down and saw it. The black and white photograph of my grandmother lying on the floor. I picked it up hugged it close to my chest, and for the first time since the war started, I cried like a child. When Ayuba didn't answer my calls, I told myself she's busy being safe. When she didn't reply to my texts, I told myself there was no signal at the metro station. I wasn't worried about the unanswered WhatsApp. We had no internet, so there was no chance they would go through. I knew she was fine. She had to be my Ayuba. That hope kept me going the first month of occupation. It was the 1st of April, the Fool's Day, and the woman who was filming the Russian column grabbing me by the well where we went to get some clean water. Have you heard? Our boys liberated Kyiv at last. The Russians are withdrawing. She whispered into my ear. Have they been occupied the whole time? I asked. Yes, and it's been much worse over there. The news is saying there are lots of dead civilians in torture chambers in Irpin and Bucha. I must have blacked out for a moment because my next memory was sitting on the grass with someone splashing water over my face. How do you know? I have a way of reaching out. My nephew lives in Odessa, remember? He told me. But Bucha, are you sure? She nodded. I didn't believe her. How could I? Bucha was where Boda lived, Ayuba's partner. I knew she spent a lot of time there, but she was in Kyiv the last time we spoke, so I knew she was all right. Yes, I knew she was all right. I needed to see her, you know. I cooked dinner for Ludmila, then took my passport, a photo of my grandma, whatever cash I had left, and started walking. I was going north because I knew that's where Kyiv was. Later I found out that it was the time when the Russians announced their gesture of goodwill and started withdrawing their troops, and the front line froze for a few days. I must have been walking around that time because that day everything did seem frozen. It's probably the reason why I survived the walk. I found myself in the middle of ruins. It took me a while to recognize Semyakia, another village some 20 kilometers from Chervanya Rana. I only sat down for a moment to catch my breath, but hours must have passed before I heard a distant noise of an engine. The Russians were coming. I had no strength to be afraid, only sadness that I would never die seeing Playwrights again. But I was wrong. The white van that came into view was pierced by bullets, but had a large red cross painted on it. I walked into the middle of the road, forcing them to stop. A young girl in a helmet and a bulletproof vest jumped out and started asking me questions, but I ignored her. I climbed through the side door of the van on top of boxes with humanitarian aid and fell asleep.
A second light appears, illuminating the right back of the stage. Ayuba lies on the floor, wrapped in a tablecloth that was covering the restaurant table. Her feet and ankles are bare, her hair spread out like a yellow stain. Nadia doesn't turn her head, continuing to address the audience.
That's how they found her. On a highway M6 that runs from Sitomir to Kyiv, 14 kilometers from Bucha. I didn't have to read the forensic report to know what they've done to Ayuba before they tried to set her and other women on fire. Everything was taking painfully long. First, the military entered, then the foreign press was allowed in, and we, dozens of us, mothers, fathers, sisters, had to wait. They organized a sort of shelter. We were fed, talked to by therapists, police, other civilians. At first, I tried to piece the story together. I walked around anywhere I was allowed to. I asked questions. I was so desperate to know. Gwen's mother was there too. She didn't have to wait as long. They found his body in the basement among 18 other men, hands tied behind his back. He was shot in the head. At least he didn't suffer long. One thing I couldn't understand though, his mother told me he had a ribbon tied around his head. That fact bothered me the most. Surely they could see that he was blind. Boden and Lyuba met 2 years before the maiden in 2013. He was a quiet, shy boy, too sweet for a policeman. Had a soft spot for poetry, very patriotic. Maybe that's why he and Lyuba clicked, and that's why he volunteered to fight in Donbass in 2014. He didn't serve long. His blindage well was shelled, and Boden lost both his eyes to shrapnel. His nerves and muscles were damaged too, so he had an enigmatic limp, as Lyuba used to laugh at. I should have known she wouldn't have abandoned him. I should have known she would forsake the safety of the metro stations to look after him. I should have. Did they not have time to run away together? Or did they simply hope that the Russians would not touch a cripple on his girlfriend? Boden was a war veteran. Surely he. So many questions. I was called to the morgue for the recognition procedure. He told me where and how they found her body. I didn't ask any more questions. I didn't want to know anymore.
The light illuminating Ryuba's body slowly fades out.
I wanted to take her home to Giovanni Ranak, and I knew I couldn't. She wouldn't want to lay in soil occupied by those monsters. Of that I was sure. So I had no choice but to bury her outside of Lucia. At least she was next to Boden. In some ways, she was still home. In my head, I was planning my return to the village. I was visualizing standing in my kitchen, baking little potato pies, and walking right up to the Russian checkpoint and offering them a little snack. They would accept. They were always hungry, always on the hunt for food and vodka. So they would eat my pies, and I would watch them next, swelling, eyes popping out. I would watch how they would go purple in their ugly, disgusting faces, and then die in front of my eyes. I too kept some arsenic for the mice. Those images would play on repeat in my head, day and night. If not for Nastia's constant phone calls and messages, I would have gone mad. I finally replied to her. I found myself unable to stop. So we spent hours on the phone. I was mostly crying. She was mostly convincing me to come to England. You have to move on. You should have left Ukraine. There's nothing for you there anymore. Come stay with me. She brainwashed me for weeks until I finally gave in and bought a train ticket to Poland. And now I'm here. I would like to tell you how impressed I was by your country, how beautiful, ancient, and proud it is, how people are all polite and smiley, and how bad I feel for them for not knowing what real tomatoes taste like. But you see, I am not a nice person. I don't care for historic sites or modern skyscrapers. The famous red double-deckers seem black and white to me. The only colors I see are blue and yellow. My world is painted in them. The rest looks bleak, shallow, unimportant. Last summer, I went to visit a community of Ukrainian refugees that lived in a countryside hotel for free. They were organizing a day of Ukrainian cuisine to thank the hotel owners, so I went to help them with the cooking. There was a boy of 7 called Matvey, who was drawing a postcard to his father, who was in the army. His mother was the main organizer of the event. I will always remember their conversation.
The clinking of cutlery, undistinguishable murmurs, and bird songs fill the space. The light illuminating Nadia fades out. Another one fades in, showing a tablecloth being used as a projector. The reported dialogue plays out in English.
That's beautiful. Not too big. Your dad will love it. Is he holding a son?
It's a gun. My dad's a soldier.
Charlie, no guns don't exist. Because they don't. Guns are bad. They mean war.
But Dad's got one and he's not bad. He's a hero.
You're right. Dad is a hero and just uses guns to fight bad men.
So his gun could be yellow.
All the guns are black. Yellow guns are like blue potatoes. They don't exist.
Actually, blue potatoes do exist. They originate from Peru and are called Andarianac blue. I just checked my phone.
Well, if potatoes can be blue, then guns can be yellow.
That's exactly how I felt. Everything was turned upside down, as if the whole world, just like my house, was looted by the Russian troops. Blue potatoes, yellow guns. What a charade, a paradox. What a cruel, cruel world we live in. Forgive me if I don't make much sense. It must be the blood loss.
Slowly, the light appears on Nadia's face, and now it has drops of blood on it.
You didn't really think I came to England, did you? What, and leave the grave of my girl? No, I never do that.
The light goes wider, revealing Nadia sat on the floor at the center of the stage, leaning on what resembles a lamppost. Her clothes are soaked in dark red blood.
I did talk to Nastya. Did listen to how she described London with its tall buildings and double-decked buses, but even then I knew I'd never leave Ukraine. I kept telling her I needed more time, but in truth, I had nothing to wait for. My world was wrapped in a blanket and set on fire on the side of the road. On the phone, Nastya was saying how we will raise money for our soldiers, how we would join the local Ukrainian communities and organize food fairs and send aid back home. I was thinking how many dagger missiles it would take to destroy the fountains of Trafalgar Square. For months, I stayed in the shelter in Kyiv, listening to Nastya's voice. She still believed I would come. Maybe if I did, I would have met somebody like John Whitcock from Surrey, and a waitress that looked like Layuba, and a group of Ukrainians that make food and look after each other. Laugh despite everything. I'd like to think I would have. I managed to paint a pretty good picture now. A part of me even wishes for a split second that my life would play out that way. But of course it didn't. Life is not some soppy stage play. I was still in Kyiv when our boys liberated Kherson. I stopped answering Nastya. I didn't want to hear her saying how dangerous it was to go back, so I switched my phone off and went home. Now that Chervony Ranak was back under our control, I'd have no trouble getting to Layuba's grave whenever I'd get my pension and could afford to. That's all I wanted. I was glad to see Ludmila and her cat both alive, my house only missing half the rooftop. The repairs took some time, but at least we were ready for the winter. Ludmila had troubles walking, so I said I'd go to Kherson to pick up cat food and some other bits for the Christmas table.
The light is now wide enough to see a shopping bag with potatoes, tins of cat food, and bread spread on the floor among concrete and other debris.
I didn't even hear a whistle. Apparently you don't when it's flying towards you. It's getting a bit chilly now. Maybe it's just me.
Nadia slowly, through pain, turns her head right and then left.
I never thought I would ever again use the word lucky to describe my life. But as I looked around, I realized I was the only one at the bus stop. Good.
Nadia's head sinks to one side as she's fighting for her last breath.
If you turn your heads, you'll see it too. The fountain. It got destroyed in shelling, but the base is still there. Somebody tied a Ukrainian flag across it. To me, it is still pretty.
Nadia starts to close her eyes, sinking lower to the floor.
Don't worry, we'll fix it. We'll fix everything. Hush now, little one, don't cry. Mom is here. No need to be afraid anymore.
The light fades out one last time. The end.
Thank you to everybody who's here physically in the audience and those who are online for being a part of the Ukrainian Play Reading event. For those of you who this might be your first time here, this is the 5th annual reading for Ukrainian plays. These are all done by Ukrainian playwrights. It's to bring awareness to the very real events that you just listened to that are going on in Ukraine right now. It's just bringing awareness. So this is a free event, but we do encourage donations to the Ukrainian Crisis Relief Fund. Everybody that's up on stage here behind me, they're all student volunteers at the university from all different colleges and departments and majors from across the campus. They're all here of their own free will. There's no class, there's no credit. They're here for a good cause. We had one rehearsal and we had what we have here. I think they did a really nice job. So let's give it up our actors for you. How's that going on? Thank you.
Hi, sorry. Okay, congratulations.
Stage going dark.